That might have been our favourite sequence in the entire game, but that doesn't matter. If we want to experience it again, we'll need to start right from the very beginning. I can remember a time when one of the greatest perks of finishing a game was accessing the level select option from the main menu, a just reward for a hero. It offered the ultimate freedom, the ability to choose any mission, any chapter, and just start playing. No early game exposition, no tutorials, no slow onboarding, just gaining the power to simply dive back into our favourite parts of the whole experience, and it was fantastic. I'd wager with no small measure of confidence that once the credits rolled on Call of Duty 4 Modern Warfare, a lot of players immediately located the mission select screen and jumped straight back in to all giddied up. I don't doubt it for a second, it's a cultural touchstone. And despite having not played a Call of Duty game for probably upwards of a decade by this stage, I suspect the mission select still persists in recent titles, allowing the player to relive their favourite scenes over and over again. So why is it that the level select screen appears to be falling into obscurity, becoming a relic of the past? The convenience that a level select offers feels absent in most modern titles. It seems common for it to be replaced with tightly controlled experiences, usually managed via autosaves and seamless progression, both very strict rules that dictate that the only way to revisit specific scenes is to select New Game and put in the legwork. Now, the logic behind that shift isn't all that hard to follow. Games have been evolving into a more filmic aesthetic for years. Seamless transitions from one scene to the next are far more effective at keeping players engaged, at least more than the clearly defined bookends of completing one level and starting another. And this naturally lends itself towards greater immersion, a buzzword that is long-standing and will likely persist for generations to come. Pair these immersion techniques with irreversible actions and tension is heightened immeasurably. Every decision feels absolute, and not just from a narrative standpoint either, but from a gameplay perspective too. The temptation to use a rare and powerful item is stifled under the pressure of its looming finality. And of course that finality extends to the moments themselves. We can't just replay a scene whenever we choose. The point of this structure is that we need to earn it. And honestly, there's real value in that. Those irreversible decisions strike with far greater impact, and as a byproduct, they can deepen storytelling or even shape our character. There is absolutely merit in this kind of no way back design philosophy, but the loss of level select comes with some very real consequences too. Because while it may enhance immersion, it also strips away player agency. Take for instance the moments where we want to break away from the intended narrative path. Video games are largely understood to be a great way of letting off steam, and the beauty of this medium is in its flexibility. Following the intended gameplay loop is one approach, but sometimes breaking away from those conventions can yield more entertaining results. But when those fun little detours carry permanent, far-reaching ramifications, then a lot of that entertainment can be negatively affected. Not convinced? Then consider how permanence is a double-edged sword. You see, ironically, perhaps even counterintuitively, while failure grants us the chance to try again, success locks us away from the moment entirely. We might expertly dispatch a boss on our first attempt, swiftly evade a deathly strike, and carry out a lethal counter. And instead of being rewarded with the option to relive it, we're left with the knowledge that experiencing it again may require replaying dozens of hours. I get this might sound like a strange complaint, but it's worth thinking about. So at its best, this type of design creates tension and permanence, and at its worst it limits our freedom and traps us in sequences we may actively dislike. Now, I'm very conscious that many games offer a manual save system. Used well, we can create our own personalised version of a level select screen. But let's be honest, this is a crude workaround for a problem that already had a solution. Maybe at this juncture I should at least acknowledge that this isn't a problem found inherently across the industry. I mean, plenty of linear games still include level select. Naughty Dog have even expanded on the concept with Uncharted 4, by not only letting us play any given chapter, but also allowing us to isolate individual combat encounters to replay on demand. And of course we can't forget the Hitman series, games that almost feel antiquated with their level structures but in the best possible way. They are practically built around the level select system. The latest entries may feel modern, but they remain true to their heritage. Even outside of the linear gaming world, we can still find specific examples of titles that try to innovate on the level select idea. Red Dead Redemption 2 might rely on us for manual saves, but we can load up any isolated missions to replay them as we choose. We are stripped of all our gear and provided with Rockstar curated equipment, but the mere ability to replay missions is a welcome one. And then we have Dark Souls 2. For a game that is all too often cast aside as the runt of the litter, it deserves praise for trying new ideas. The bonfire aesthetics, for example, reverses the irreversible. Essentially, this tool resets any given location and in the process reanimates all bosses within their arenas, giving us the chance to fight them again. It wasn't a perfect system, but credit where credit is due. There are other examples of games that have tried to implement features that are effectively compensating for the lack of level select. And of course, I appreciate the attempts, after all beggars can't be choosers. But the more I think about it, the more I begin to wonder, what makes the level select concept a redundant feature in the eyes of so many developers? I'll concede that modern technology has enabled near limitless possibilities that somewhat complicate matters, whether it be vast open worlds, dynamic systems, branching quests, persistent choices, and I get it. With all the variables overlapping and interacting in real time, you could argue that building a traditional level select in these worlds is next to impossible. It's incredibly difficult to truly define a quote-unquote level when any number of objectives are bridging from one narrative beat to the next. But maybe the solution doesn't need to be all that complicated. Something akin to a series of dog ears spread across the narrative, letting us revisit our favourite moments without breaking the wider structure. We'll still play through the game systematically as the developers intended, but in the background the game quietly creates these locked save states at key moments, just before major quests, before boss fights, pivotal story beats. And when the story is completed, those save points unlock, accessible from a separate menu. Functionally, they work just like any manual save, just without the burden of the player having to create and manage them, or the risk of them being accidentally overwritten. The only clear drawback is continuity. Jumping between chapters could result in side quests and item discovery not quite aligning, but this can be somewhat mitigated with clever organising. Either way, I wasn't promising an airtight solution, just a possible alternative to the status quo. Besides, the aesthetic shift towards adopting more filmic tendencies means I can fully appreciate the director's vision in crafting a story that's intended to be played from start to finish, and not from, say, chapters 3 to 5 and then 7 to 10. It's interesting then that for a game that is so fixated on delivering such a cinematic experience, The Last of Us Part 2 still offers a level select, albeit a bloody awkward and convoluted one. Anyway, in reality, level select isn't being forced into retirement because of it being an inferior concept. It's just making way for the evolution that games are experiencing, chasing immersion, seamless narratives, and continuous worlds chief among them. And it's been happening for a while. PlayStation 2 era Prince of Persia games, along with the original God of War trilogy, already showed signs of this shift decades ago, favouring unbroken journeys across connected stages, rather than clearly defined levels chosen from a menu. It's certainly not a sudden change, but a gradual one. As gaming continues to evolve, our expectations must evolve along with them. This was probably always going to happen, but even knowing that, I still miss level select. I miss the ability to kickstart a game from whichever chapter I choose, instead of being forced into starting a new game and playing potentially dozens of hours to reach it. I miss the freedom of just dropping in to fight my favourite boss from the convenience of a menu, and I don't think that convenience ruins immersion. I think it celebrates player agency, and when we discover a favourite moment in a game, that does matter. But regardless of how powerful the level select tool is for player enjoyment, it seems more often than not that we're encouraged to keep going, to reach the end, only to find ourselves once again right back at the beginning.